for every person or team on your company, you need to know quantity, how much are they doing, and quality, are they doing a good job, and are they doing it on time? And once you can track and measure each team or each individual, then they can be managed.
I'm John Martinka, and welcome to the Getting the Deal Done podcast. My special guest today is Garin Hillo. Garin is an entrepreneur who now is helping entrepreneurs. And as you listen to this episode, some of the things you're gonna learn now. Did a startup with a couple $100,000, bought out his partner with 6 loans. How he hired a CEO, sold it for a lot of money, and now helps uh, entrepreneurs and wannabe entrepreneurs get into business and create the systems and processes they need to be successful. So, Garin, welcome.
Thank you, John. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this since we did our prep call because you've got some messages that most business people need to hear, and especially the middle one about hiring a CEO. But we'll get into that. Let's start with just a little bit about you and your background and how you got to uh, where you are now. I mean the journey from starting being in sales, starting a company, and boom.
Sure. Well, that's a long journey, but I'll give you a high level and you dial in where you want, John. So, I grew up in a very entrepreneurial household. Both my parents had run multiple businesses, not grossly successful, very small businesses, but inspired me to learn, go to school for business and how to run everything in a business except for what the business does. So, I could take a technical specialist and build a business around him or her. Decided to go into biotech, and so I spent 3 years working at a startup in biotech doing sales before launching my own business with a business partner of mine. He was a PhD in immunology, so he knew how to run a lab, and I knew how to do the sales and finance. We started on a couple $100,000 of his family cash, as you mentioned, and grew it. And I was the CEO, and he ran the lab. Along the way, we were nearly bankrupt as we more or less bootstrapped it for 5 years before I bought him out, collateralized my home that my wife and I had just bought while I had a 1 year old, as you mentioned. It was a wild ride, but I knew the business had a lot of potential. I spent a lot of years getting the business ready to sell, building it. I built it around myself, and I think that's very natural for entrepreneurs. And I spent, years unbuilding it and rebuilding it in a way that was sellable. And that led to just an exceptional outcome where we sold at the end of 2021 for $190 million. I still owned more than half of the business. My employees owned 20%. So it was just a great outcome for everyone involved. And since then, I've been sharing what I've been learning with entrepreneurs. I've coached over 100 in the past 5 years. And it's remarkable to me how many people make very similar mistakes or are afraid of the same things, especially people like me who grew up with not a lot of money, running a business, aspiring to more. And so, yeah, I've been on a mission to share how to do some of these things and how to think about building a business so that it can impact other people's lives like it has for me, my wife, and my 2 kids, which I should have started with. So there you go, John. There's a rambling introduction to myself.
Yeah, that's a good introduction. So talk a little bit about the process of stepping away and hiring a CEO and the reasoning behind that and how others could benefit from that.
Oh, great question. When I, for the first few years of running the business, it was just like, is this business going to work? And it was just put it all on my back. The team was just, we're just going to do everything I can. And then once I shifted to, hey, I'm the owner of this business, I really want this business to have maximum enterprise value. I started to realize that the best way to prove that to a buyer is that someone else is running it. You need to have systems for everything. And the ultimate proof that the business can run without the founder, without the owner, is that someone is actually running it. Um, and so I recruited Tracy Mullen to join my team, exceptional scientist, great leader, as my COO. And after about a year of her being on the job, I realized, wow, she would be a better CEO than me for a number of reasons. We're in a scientific industry. She's a scientist. I'm an economist. Um, and I would keep my best talent and what a proof to a buyer. And so it was a multi-year process. Probably took 18 months maybe before like the idea to getting her in the CEO seat. And it was the best thing I did. It vastly many multiples on our exit value. We got so many customers and people who wanted to come work for us, great talent by having a CEO who really personified the brand. The challenging thing was getting over the ego. As a CEO of a business, you like introduce yourself at a party. Oh, I'm the CEO of a company. People are like, oh, wow. Like all of a sudden, what you say means more. It really gets into your ego. So a lot of people were very surprised when I gave up that title. And I was the owner of the business and I stayed on to manage sales. So the structure was a little odd, but it was just the right thing for me. And I've seen it to be the right thing for a couple of other businesses too, getting ready to exit.
Yeah.
How does that match your experience? You've talked to as many people or more about this than me.
It's unusual. There's too, you're right. Ego gets involved with it. And just also uh, I think a lot of owners think that, this is my baby. I've got to be involved, whether it's ego or not. Is
Hmm.
that, what do I have if I'm not there? When they don't realize what you did is by not being there running the business was better.
Absolutely.
And it all comes into delegating and having a team. And I just wrote an article. I have a company here in the Seattle area. We alternate, the CEO of that company and I alternate uh, articles every other month. We provide the other one with an article for the website blog. And my latest one is on this subject a little bit. And it really says, everyone says delegate. Don't do things below your pay grade and et cetera, et cetera. But you have to have the structure underneath before you can do that. You just can't
Mm.
say to a $20 an hour person, I need you to do these things that a VP should be doing. You've got to have the right team. So you have to build that infrastructure before the owner can step back and delegate to others.
I'm so glad you bring that up, John. I deal over this with so many CEOs that I coach, and they're stuck at like between $1 and $3 million of revenue usually. They've been there for a few years and they're really struggling to break through. And I mentioned to them, hey, a really important thing for you to do right now is to implement metrics. For every person or team on your company, you need to know quantity, how much are they doing, and quality, are they doing a good job, and are they doing it on time? And once you can track and measure each team or each individual, then they can be managed. And so, we think about that with someone flipping burgers. So you should be able to do 20 an hour or whatever. But then you don't implement the same metrics on your CEO, for example. And so the best thing to do when you're trying to figure out how to manage someone is do the job for a little bit. And how do you measure whether or not you're doing a good job? So if we're honest with ourselves as CEOs and business owners, there's a lot of the readers of your listeners to your podcast, excuse me, say like how do we know if I'm doing a good job? Is the payroll happening on time? Is sales growing? There are metrics that are specific to your business. Are my customers happy? And then hold yourself to that standard for an extended period of time. And then you're ready to hire someone else to be the CEO, just like you would for a sales manager or a salesperson. And if you have metrics throughout the entire organization, then it's possible to sell the business. And then a lot of people are like, I don't want to sell. Well, okay, what happens if like you get hit by a bus and your husband or wife needs to step in for a month or two and run the business or for indefinitely? How would they even know if that accountant or scientist or engineer is doing a good job? They don't know. And so building in metrics is fundamental to growing a business beyond where most businesses get stuck at that 1 to 3 million in revenue. It's fundamental to value growth. It's just so boring. It's not sexy. So a lot of people don't do it and it holds them back for years.
Well, your another answer to your scenario of getting hit by a bus is what happens if you get that offer you just can't refuse? And that happened to a friend of mine in 2019. He got an offer. I, he didn't hire me, but I gave him some counsel. I know what he was making. I know what the offer was. It was way above market. He wasn't ready to retire, but they kept, got a 5-year agreement to stay on, and he couldn't turn it down. it would have been stupid to turn it down. Now, if he would have been 40 instead of what his age was, maybe not. But when if that offer comes along, you got to be ready for it.
Absolutely. And that
And you know,
usually
you
takes
talked
years of
about
work.
the
People get
metrics.
years, they're like, hey, they will have years of financial plans and financial statements that are audited and ready to go. And then they do none of that on metrics. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah.
you know, the article I just mentioned, there's a story in there, and it's a company I'd done a couple of projects for. We did an acquisition, did something else, and the owner calls me up and he says, you know, I'm not making enough money. And he wasn't. And so I went in and I did this, you know, a lot of the usual stuff. I talked to many groups of employees, I had about 50 people, a bunch of employee meetings, focus group with the management team, meeting with him, and came down to one thing, the owner's the bottleneck. Every
That usually is the case.
everything had to cross his desk. And he
What a
had a team.
nightmare.
He had an operations person, an accounting person, a sales manager, and they were all capable and we put in a delegation plan to those people. After 1 year, his profits quintupled.
Nice job, John. That's awesome.
And
The
that,
hardest thing as an owner is to see that. It's so hard to see. For me, it was so hard to see. And then as soon as I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. And it was embarrassing because it must have been the case for a long time.
yeah. And the biggest complaint he had, he said, my people are complaining to me that now they're so busy because I've delegated. I say, well, do the same things I worked with you on to them to delegate to the next level down.
Boom. That's awesome. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's the going from a hustler and doing everything yourself to being a manager. And I don't think anyone's born a natural manager. People are born natural leaders. And it takes work to be a really good manager. And then it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. Most people don't understand the difference between managing and leading.
Ah, big difference. Yep.
That's why every business publication from the, Wall Street Journal 6 times a week to magazines that come out every week or every month always seem to have an article on bad managers.
Well, I think it comes from the top. Like, and that's so key again to getting your deal done. Like, no one wants you, the founder, there. They want your team. And to have a good management structure is so key. And while we're hopping on metrics, it's like if you don't know measurably how your people are doing, then you end up ranking them based on your feelings or politics or all this stuff. And it makes this toxic place to be. It makes management impossible. So I run into all these businesses that don't have annual performance reviews, that don't have metrics for performance, and they're asking me why their culture is bad and their sales are low. And they're like, well, obviously, like those are directly correlated. That's the work you got to do to keep
Yeah,
your top talent.
I can relate to one of those things you said. I mean, many years ago, I was at a place and uh, there there were two. I hate to use the word admin people because they were above that for what they did,
Mhm.
but they're more like sales support. And one of them was far superior to the other, but got lower reviews and raises because the other one and the manager were the same religion.
What a similar story. Exactly, right? Top performer is going to leave in that scenario, and all you're left is middling talent. That type of thing
Yeah,
happens all the time. But as the business owner, it's your responsibility to make sure that each of your departments under you have metrics that are fair. And yeah, the results speak for themselves.
yeah. So let's pivot a little bit to what you're doing now. And
What am I
you've helped a
doing?
lot of entrepreneurs. Uh, you're doing some sales training with them, correct?
Yeah, sales training is where I got started. So I've coached a lot of companies in sales training, and then I've done a lot of fundraising and coaching a lot of CEOs through growth periods, making their businesses more sellable. A lot of that's like personal coaching. It's part, uh, you know, cheerleading, part providing structure for them. And what I've found, I've worked with, I think I tallied it up. It was over 150 people that I've worked with, usually over an extended period of time. Usually meeting once a week or once a month. And it's just staggering to me across industries how similar the needs are. I find myself sharing the same stories, talking about metrics and how to hire someone and how to fire someone and how to consider fundraising that doesn't give up all of your control, how to get your business ready to sell, how to sell your product, how to manage a sales team. It's the same. Everyone has the same problems. And I'm almost happy to talk about it, John, but I'm a little tired of saying the same thing one on one. So I wrote the whole thing into a book. I'm way late into the podcast to promote my book, but I should have started at the beginning. I'm a poor self-promoter. But I wrote a book. It's called The Stuff in Between: How to Take a Big Idea into a Successful Business. And I'm really excited to share it because I'm a total nerd. I've journaled for years. I've read hundreds of business books. I'm full of all sorts of I think, helpful stuff. So I went through everything that's helped everyone that I've worked with over the past few years and worked it into a book. And so I want to keep sharing. I think that increasing, helping people get out of their businesses well, start great businesses, fundamentally improves people's lives and communities. And that's where I want to do.
Now, the book is going to be out in May of 2026.
May 25th is the launch date, May 2026. Yep.
Is that on Amazon?
It'll be on Amazon. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the
I'm
best way to.
self-publishing it.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
what
that
I did with all my books is lately, or after the first one, it's all been with Amazon, and it's easy
that's
place to
great.
send people.
I
And
just I pitch a lot. A lot of my teachings are about fundraising and avoid taking venture capital money or raising too much money. First-time founders raise on valuation. They're fundraising, they're worried about valuation. And experienced founders raise on control. They're more worried about control. And so I'm all about maintaining control of your business. I love that for lifestyle and financial outcome. And I could look at publishing a book, and I'm going to give up 80% of my revenue and all the rights to a publisher who's going to publish it when they want. And the book's all about avoiding the big money control. It's like, I can't go do that. Like, we're going to have to self-publish this. Yeah.
yeah, well, it is a pretty slick system they have, uh, and especially if you're going to, get books for your own for giving to people, etc. It's really a cool process. But so let's go back to who you're helping, and uh, it's smaller businesses, operating businesses. And
Most of the people I'm working with, yeah, they're either just helping people get off the ground, but most people I'm working with, they're somewhere less than $2 or $3 million in revenue and looking to scale. And I've seen enough of these people through. I've had someone personally make over $30 million in an exit that I just worked with them finishing. Um, and she was at that small scale, just 1 million or 2. We worked for over 3 years. We dramatically changed the course of her business and obviously her life. Um, And so
so,
small businesses, which I'm using an air quote here on the podcast, can exit for like massively life-changing outcomes. And a venture capital firm or a private equity group would be like, oh, $30 million exit, that's small, but that's life-changing for a person and a family. And so I love working with founder-owned businesses where the impact is strong.
okay, nationwide or up where you live in New England?
Been nationwide, yeah. I've
Okay,
even helped some people internationally, but yeah, most of the people are nearby. Most people come and sit in my office right here and work on my whiteboard, but I'm happy to sit and talk on Zoom too.
yeah,
It's not something that I actively advertise anymore. Like at this point, it's been over a year since I've had someone sit in my office and I introduced them an idea that's not in the book. Like it's all in there. So we'll start, if you want to work with me, maybe in the future, read my book. We'll talk about what's there. I hope that it fundamentally changes outcomes in business for not for everyone, for 1 in 1 million people. And those people are going to really, really get a lot of benefit out of that.
okay. So let's talk about your book and what's in your book. And you've mentioned there's all these different businesses, different industries, different sizes, but yet the issues are the same. What now? We
It's
talked a little bit about the owner doing too much. What other things are common to all types, sizes, locations of businesses?
mm, every entrepreneur I've worked with has there are a couple of things. One, let me start with the simplest one. We could all introduce ourselves better. When we introduce ourselves as successful people, you have credibility. And I think too many people introduce themselves with a lot of humility, which is good, but introducing yourselves with credibility is a lot more important. Like I didn't step on this podcast and just be like, I'm a business enthusiast. Like I told you, I sold my business for $190 million, which you may be like, oh, that guy comes on too strong. What a jerk. Cool, fine. But at least I have credibility in this conversation because I grew up with no money and I made money. I have credibility here. Too many people skip that step. So some of those little coachable moments, like that's a little change to start every interaction with introducing yourself with credibility. Little change, massive ultimate outcome for the founders. Um, that's not what I meant to talk about. Put me back on track here, John.
Well, first I'm going to add that there is a fine line between confidence and uh, credibility up to arrogance,
Mm,
and when you don't want to cross that line, but you're right. You got to be confident. You got to have credibility. Uh, you know, I have someone in in the M&A industry that says, "Well, I'll sell business. I like to sell businesses that have between 1 and 10 million of earnings." He's on his own. Who's going to give him an assignment to sell a company that's going to sell for 60, 80, $100 million when he's sole practitioner? It sounds good to say you do that, but really, no one's going to hire you. There are enough investment banks.
yeah, right.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's talk about we're talking about the common
Commonality, I think.
issues and mistakes.
I think that fear is one of the number one commonalities. And it's all like humans are afraid of the unknown. As an entrepreneur, there's no business owner who's a specialist in everything that it takes to run a business, whatever the business does, sales, marketing, hiring, firing, legal. And so when we're afraid of things, I think the best attitude that commonly like good entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs carry is the understanding that anything that's out there they can learn. And that helps us to overcome these fears. So when I'm afraid of firing someone, it's probably because I don't know how to fire someone. And once you have a process for firing someone and you're not afraid of it, it becomes an empowering thing and something that you're not afraid of. So I think that we all carry around these fears, fears of the unknown. And the best thing we could do is to just ask for help. Like when I started asking for help from other entrepreneurs, I felt less alone, and that just things that I was scared of are now super empowering. Um, so that's a commonality that we all have fears, and the people who like really are like, oh, that's a fear of the unknown. I'll learn how to do that. It's not scary anymore. Um, find a lot more success.
Yeah,
I'm sure
you see that I've noticed I will call it an explosion of people in groups like Vistage or EO and
exactly.
clones of those organizations because there is something to being with other people in different industries, same circumstances, and
Yep.
hearing they have the same problems that
I've
I
been in
do.
a group like that for 10 years, set up by one of my professors. And now we meet once a month. These are like some of 10 of my best friends. And we've all are like on these awesome trajectories. We've all helped each other so much.
Yeah.
It's great. Like just, so I couldn't suggest that more.
So confidence and fear, those tie together and credibility. What else?
What else is a commonality that we're going to see that everyone has? It's sales. Everyone has sales issues.
That
Like
doesn't
in every
surprise me.
business, sales solves all problems. Like people will come to me and have these like HR issues or this or that. So, like if you had more sales at a higher price, would this be a problem? No. Then I think then focus on sales. Sales is the root of I think most issues in most businesses. And it's an easy thing to learn. Like people who are PhDs don't put the time into learning sales. Like if you are a highly technical specialist, it's not that hard to learn. And the basics are there. Asking good questions. It's in my book, but you could read any good sales book
Yeah.
and vastly advance and something that people just don't put off and don't learn or think is sleazy or something, where it's like critically important.
Yeah. It is very important. I'm someone I knew, and he had been the a president of one of the major divisions at Expedia, and I can't remember if it was corporate travel or personal travel, but his line was, and this ties to sales, growth hides a lot of operational warts.
Well said. Yeah,
And then I say, then you go back and fix the warts.
exactly. Or
And
it's like either you're good at sales or you have to launch with a perfect product. And nobody launches with a perfect product. And so either you're good at sales or you have to fundraise. And then someone else owns your business and they'll replace you with someone who is good at sales. Like being good at sales is your only option in being a successful
yeah,
entrepreneur.
and
When I invest, I only invest in companies who have a leader who is very good at sales. Best success metric I've found.
yeah. And then and there are different types of sales. I mean, there's people who are really good at one-on-one sales, people good at group sales, people good at selling the whole company and its vision. Uh, and
Sure. Yeah, recruiting is an act of sales. Fundraising is an
yeah,
act of sales. Recruiting mentors, getting yourself into the right rooms. Those are all, I use sales pretty broadly in that term. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, this is I was so looking forward to this episode when we talked a few weeks ago, and it's lived up to what I was expecting. This is just great advice, and people who are listening to this should be sending it to their friends, and not to plug me, but to plug you, because this is just common sense stuff that often gets lost in theory.
there you go.
So before we do anything, I'm going to wrap up on this. Tell us what you like to do when you're not building businesses and helping others build businesses.
Oh, love to talk about that. Well, the striped bass are about to be back here in the Cape Cod area. So fishing, I'm a massive, passionate fisherman,
Okay.
saltwater, freshwater, frozen water. I also am a passionate blacksmith. I love over the past year and a
Wow.
half, I've picked up blacksmithing. We have a hobby farm here where I planted an orchard. We have chickens and all sorts of vegetables, and we just got bees. I'm learning to play the piano. I could say that, selling a business in your mid 30s and then filling the time with other activities is, I enjoy
Yeah. So
it.
you got the farm and all that.
I
Is
should
that
also mention while I'm here, we run the Duxbury Adventure Club. I ran the Cub Scouts in town for a few years. Love the outdoors, and we launched the Duxbury Adventure Club to teach the youth in town a love for the outdoors. And we've been running that as a 501c organization, and I love it. So instead of taking payment for most of my consulting, I ask people that donate to my Duxbury Adventure Club. And so we've got, I think it's like 20 families in town this year, and it'll be much bigger next year, teaching things like how to light fires, how to handle knives safely, how to go camping. We've got a multi-day camping trip, bike trips, fishing. And so I love that. Spend a lot of energy with there and the kids and the community. So
so has it already been planting season in Massachusetts?
we have got some strawberries in the ground. It's a little early.
Yeah.
Really should be another mid-May, about when this airs, is where I should be starting to put more stuff in the ground. But oh yeah, lots of yard work. We have 7 acres and we have a ton of trees down this winter. And growing up in a logging town myself, I refused to hire people to do that. So I've spent weeks out there with a chainsaw and a splitter. And so that's where I get to spend my time. It's nice.
Yeah, it's a little early for a lot of things here in the Seattle area. Around here, the rule's always around Mother's Day for tomatoes, cucumbers, etc.
Same
Uh,
idea. Yeah. Here in Massachusetts.
yeah. So, any final thoughts? And let's mention the book again. What the title of the book is,
The book is The Stuff in Between.
and it's May 25th on Amazon.
Yep. And just think about this. Like we can America is built to benefit the business owner. And so you might as well become one. And the tools to do that are right here in this podcast, in the book I'm promoting right now, The Stuff in Between. If you think that maybe you would be interested in running a business or changing your family's trajectory, give it a shot. The odds are stacked in your favor. The worst case scenario of running a business and failing is going back to an hourly paid job or a salary job, which is probably where you are now. So give it a shot.
Well, I think that's great advice. Uh, Garin, I appreciate your being on. And this has been fascinating and it lived up to what I was expecting. So I thank you again. And how do people get hold of you besides the book that will be on Amazon?
Check me out on LinkedIn or Instagram. My name is, you don't find many Garin Hillows in the world. Google it. I post multiple times a week with videos and little tidbits to help out entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's great, and I will have that in the show notes. And but if for people who are want to get to it and they can't see the show notes, it's a Garren Garren Hillow Hilow.
Thanks for the promotion, John. Appreciate that. I hope
Okay,
everyone finds some use
this
out of it.
this was fun, and thank you for being on.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.